Wicked. Benny Fergusson, how's it going, mate?
Thank you. How are you?
Good to see you. I'm really well. I'm feeling great. Yeah, just got a new haircut, so feeling fresh.
I was noticing that. I could never do that with my hair.
Maybe you could tight perm it if you grew it long enough. I reckon you could get it going.
I could, yeah. I sometimes do forget I put like a pen in my hair, like in the back.
How long? How long is yours though? How long does yours get down to?
It's like, how long is
I.
it? Sort of like a Weller commercial, isn't it? Yeah.
Awesome. So
Yeah.
yeah, we were just talking body work about what you do. If you just give a quick little summary or intro of
Yeah,
who
yeah.
you are and what you do, because I would like to know as well as the people.
Yeah, so would I. So would I. It's always evolving, but like ultimately what I've realized is that um I started off like seeking to make people stronger, more flexible, all of these things, have less pain and all of that sort of stuff. And um, I suppose I realized that it's a reality that kind of exists outside of ourselves, something that we'd like to embody more, you know?
Like
And
this, like a picture or an ideal or something out there.
yeah, yeah, you know, a lot of people have a goal and that's great. But I've realized along the way that all of those things, kind of the qualities to allow those experiences to happen, already exist inside of us. And often it's just our own conditioning and all of that sort of thing, you know, the way we were taught maybe as kids, that kind of gets in the way of like the real you deep inside. You know,
Mm-hmm.
so for me, I use movement as a way of tapping into that, and you know, I call it, you know, just tapping into your physical wisdom. There's lots of ways to go about it, but I've found some ways that work really well, and I just love sharing my personal experiences, and I get the opportunity to work with other people and continue to witness things that work with them as well. And each time I kind of just pick apart common threads and use it to keep supporting other people. Yeah.
Cool. And in terms of your physicality, you like me, love sport. I'm a big sports person. I've been playing cricket since I can remember. Been Aussie rules as well, big one for me. Even just like capoeira, doing physical like martial arts as well, and dance, and as well qigong, and been energy cultivating. So actually, I'm wearing the Namekian t-shirt now, the Dragon Ball Z thing.
I was noticing that. I was like,
So that's like all the movement, all the energy. Like I've loved it. So for me, I think last night I was on Facebook. Someone was telling me that they have a physical injury, a knee injury, and that was getting them really depressed. They're like, "Oh, I love physical training and I love working out, and
yeah,
I'm really depressed because I can't do it." And they're focusing on the knee that's fucked up. And then we had a quick chat. We hardly knew each other, but we had a quick chat, and they were from that quick chat that we had. I was just like listening to them, going, "What's happening for you? What's going on?" And they were telling me this, and then they said after our little chat, they sent me a little video message back saying, "Oh, I didn't necessarily suggest this, but I just listened to her, yeah." And then she said, "Oh, after our little chat, I was really inspired, and I thought, why am I just sitting at home depressed about my knee? I can still leave the house, you know." And so she drove to the ocean, and she looked out at the ocean, and she was contemplating and watching the waves rolling, and she was feeling the breeze and the sun, and really enjoying being out of the house. You know, it's like not necessarily have to do the physical workout or be stuck on the shitty aspect of what's going on. But I know for me, well, that she said that was really profound for her. She's like, "Oh, I just opened my mind to what's actually possible in terms of where I've put my attention." And for me, I know I'm susceptible to really getting down on myself if my physical body isn't working,
yeah,
because I love it so much, you know.
totally. Yeah, I was the same. I had a complete identity crisis, you know, at one point. It's like, who am I? You know, particularly when still love sports, and but particularly I played a lot of very high level volleyball and all of that sort of thing. So it was kind of, I would, I was defined by it in a lot of ways, you know, friends and fun and like a
Mm.
sense of growth, and kind of that kind of killer instinct a little bit was just kind of going in me. And then I couldn't do any of that. you know, I couldn't even walk without pain. And
tell us about that. Like, you just say that like one day you just couldn't walk.
it was sort of like it did, the injury manifested like that. And, you know, I suppose the beauty of hindsight is I could track back and look at the moments that led to that as well. And but, you know, as we were saying before, like I got into a lot of strongman activities. You know, those days I kind of
lifting up the big balls and putting on top of,
and, you know, like big heavy tires, and, you know, I used to run
pulling trucks and things with you.
No, not quite trucks, but, you know, my own version of strongman. And you know, I felt strong doing it.
Was that like CrossFit type stuff, or what?
Yeah, this was kind of like way back before CrossFit was really even a thing. And yeah, we had a facility in Richmond in Melbourne, and yeah, there was no mirrors, there was no anything. We just liked to move and you know, lift weights and become strong, and all that was kind of the thing back then that we were doing, and just kind of exploring as people. And, you know,
you were saying you were weighing in at what? Like, what was your
about 110 kilos at the time.
What kind of body fat are we talking?
I didn't really measure it at the time, but it was pretty low, you know. Yeah. And
you're feeling strong?
Hey?
You must have been feeling strong.
I did feel strong, but I also felt, in reflection, quite stiff, like stuck in my body.
So there wasn't much yoga and stuff? And
no, stretching. Like, you know, stretching was more of an afterthought, that sort of thing. Like, it was in, like, the actual event that I suppose allowed that physical injury to occur was in a tire flipping competition with a friend of mine. And he's, you know, this tire, I don't know, maybe weighed between 250 or 300 kilos or something like that. It was
tire does.
The tire, yeah, like one of those big, like construction things. And I remember, like, we got this thing. It's amazing how cheap these things. It's like 20 bucks, you know, from a tire recycling place. And we're looking at all these tires, and I see this big tire, and I go to lift it and just get nothing. And it's like, that's my challenge, you know.
That's the holy grail.
I'm going to flip you over, right? And, you know, so I got it like 2 times. That was my best. And then one of my friends, who's like a super strong dude, he did it 14 times in a 5-minute period. So I'm like, oh, okay, boys will be boys. I had to get 15 or death may happen, you know. And I felt amazing. But then, like, a couple of weeks later, I like came into the bathroom where I was living at the time, and just like my spine was just like this. And I had to do a bit of a double take, you know. I tried to straighten it up. I'm like, oh, no, that's not going to happen. And 3 or 4 times, I then realized something is not right. You know, so you could imagine at that point, loved doing all these things, felt really strong and all that sort of stuff. Even though I knew I was stiff, I kind of didn't really step into that world. So I never really had to face that reality. Do you know what I mean? I kind of just stayed where I was comfortable. But I couldn't ignore the pain. It was just too much. So I had to just do something different. And I tried to keep going back to what I was familiar with, but my body's just like, dude, you got to do something different. And look a bit deeper as to actually what's really important to you, and how this injury presented just at the way that you were looking at your body and approaching your physical activity. And so, you know, I did a lot of self-inquiry, asked a lot of hard questions to myself, failed a lot of times to try and get to the source of what was going on, and, you know, went lots of traditional therapies, chiro, physio, osteo, Reiki healing, all that sort of stuff, you know.
How old were you at this time?
I was about 7 years ago now, or 8 years. So I'm 32 now. So
24 years.
Yeah, around that age. So I was just a bit lost at the end of the day. Like I couldn't find something to sustainably release this. It would just it was something that was building up for a long time. You know, I didn't feel strong inside myself. You know, as a kid, particularly a big moment was for me when I was physically assaulted by a group of guys as a teenager, at a party. And that was kind of a big moment for me of going, I need to make myself big and strong so then I don't get attacked anymore. Like I just didn't feel safe.
Right.
So all of that physical training was I suppose, a bit of a justification to compensate for the fact that I just didn't feel safe in myself. And it led to the way I trained. It led to doing a lot of martial arts, from Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu to Wing Chun to Taekwondo to lots of things that I explored. And anyway, along the way, I realized that I still need to move my body, but I need to do it in a way that actually nourishes me. And
were you finding that those things weren't, the Wing Chun, the BJJ, that sort of stuff, wasn't nourishing your body? Or
it wasn't the art itself, it was the way I was approaching it. And
it was like the intention behind it.
Totally. You're like, like there's something that people are probably familiar with is the concept of yin and yang, and I was all yang, all fire and all that sort of thing. And particularly when I started different forms of Shaolin Qigong, and it was interesting when I started doing that. I got really pissed off. I was really angry. People around me were like, why are you getting so angry? Aren't you, because I talked about it, that I was doing this different thing for me at the time. And just all this anger just that I had suppressed in my body, it was just coming out. And I didn't really know what it was all about. Right? So just through some of these experiences, hopefully that gives a bit of a background of like what led me to do what I do today, and why I'm kind of continuing to, pull on the threads in this path. Is just there's so many sensations in my body that were going on and still go on at any given moment. And I just didn't know how to deal with them. I was always in reaction to what was going on within myself. And that was causing real catastrophe in other areas of my life as well. So yeah, as I learned to listen to that and work with the signals, just as a signal, not being good or bad, then my body started to wake up. And so it's almost, I learned to start to create a space for my body to self-correct and self-heal. And, now if we look now, I'm much stronger than I ever was, from a physical perspective, but also there's this deep relaxation that is a very new experience as well.
That learning there about what you just said about something not being right or wrong, where did that come from?
Say a bit more.
So you just mentioned that you approached it from a place of things not being right or being wrong. Where was that something was that like a theory? Was that something you've read? Was it a download that you came? Was it teaching that you heard from somebody? Or
I've explored meditation practices for some time in lots of different forms, and even before I probably really was able to comprehend what even meditation is. I thought I knew until maybe I don't even know still, but maybe it's just about being present, but doesn't have to be sitting on a cushion. Anyway, I just through, I suppose, going into stillness for a long time, it didn't come from anywhere specifically, but I just noticed myself, when you watch the mind long enough, particularly for myself, I start to notice just how mischievous it can be, It's like this little thing. And I notice when I get this feeling and then I kind of follow that, I kind of get pulled on this little thread that's not really, it's not closer to the truth. It's just it's like, follow me. And a lot of the time, that's why I had to start to realize that it's all about the way I interpret the meaning as to how I experience it. So that's when I suppose I started to judge myself and the experience I was having of my body less and less. So then when pain comes up, initially it was like, oh, that's a bad thing. Like, go away from it, move away from the pain. And I suppose before that, pain was almost like a good thing. In my training, when I got like muscle soreness and that sort of thing, I was like, that was a good workout. I had all these really messed up relationships with with pain and stuff like that. And then I came to a point, and I don't know where it came from, but I just sort of asked myself, well, what if pain was just a signal? Just a signal for you to explore. And it just opened up so many other possibilities. Yeah, it's just
so simple, right?
Oh, completely, profoundly simple, you know, like all of the things that have been so deeply nourishing to me and, you know, those that I share this with, it's just the most simple things that are right in front of your face and almost so simple that you would just write it off. You know,
it can't be that easy.
Yeah, we want something a little bit more like, oh God.
So all I have to do is just be aware of my posture. Is that all? It's like,
yeah.
Just have to pay attention to my breathing. Like what? It can't be that easy. Surely there's more pieces of the puzzle.
Yeah, and there is as well. You know, it's like, you know, for me, I had a lot of, I suppose, stuck energy, a lot of traumatic events that I hadn't dealt with in my body. Then as soon as I started to become aware of these things, that's why the process of just observing in a non-attached way became so important, was because all these experiences go, okay, you know, he's ready to deal with stuff. Let's deal with it. I just noticed every time I start to react to it, it would just it would get put away in its place again. And I wouldn't get an opportunity to understand the nature of why that's actually hanging around within me. So, yeah.
And when did you start the meditation practice, and what kind of styles? Like, was that part of the martial arts and things that you practiced, or?
Yeah, it can. Probably the biggest way that it came through is through doing some Neigong practices and starting standing meditation. That was probably
where'd you pick those up from?
So probably one of my biggest influences was a guy named Mark Cohen, and he wrote a book named Inside Zhenzhong or Zhanzhuang, and depending on how, I'm not Chinese, but
Zhenzhuang.
yeah, and I picked up the book.
Standing pose, right?
Yeah, just a standing posture. You know, like just you're standing there with your feet about shoulder width thereabouts, and your arms just by your side, and you're just standing there, kind of not doing a lot on the surface. And I got interested in, I think I saw, you know, like as you do, like a YouTube clip of like Bagua and these sorts of, I was interested in Tai Chi at the time, but then hadn't heard of these other internal martial arts like Bagua and Xingyi and that sort of thing. And like these beautiful arts. And I'm like, what are these movements? You know, like what's going on? There's something that part of me was like, look deeper, but I didn't really know what I was looking for. So I noticed in each of those arts, there was a common thing of a standing posture, you know, a standing meditation. And it took me quite a bit further because I tried seated meditation for a long time, but I found I ended up either falling asleep or I couldn't even sit cross-legged, you know, at the time. Like, I just couldn't find my place with it. You know, I didn't really understand it. And so for me, this was a really good gateway because it was a physical meditation. I couldn't fall asleep because I'd fall over. And anyway, the more I stood there, like the first time I did it, I challenged myself a bit, and I just was standing there for, you know, about 20 minutes. And my body started shaking, and areas that I haven't felt before came up, and all these emotions, and it's like, whoa, like I'm just standing here, you know?
Right.
And then so I just kept going. That something in me was like, just keep going. It's so simple. There's things that are useful here. And so slowly I refined the art, and I learned from a few different teachers, and then I noticed that as I went to different martial arts, like I kind of got back into martial arts, and I felt changes in my body. You know, like I could relax whilst being active, which was a whole new thing for me. Like I just thought relaxation's like, you know, you're on the couch or you get a massage, you kind of flopped out, right? But to start to get a glimpse of you can be relaxed whilst kind of having integrity and strength. All at the same time, it brought this new sense of ease and power to what I was doing.
It reminds me when you say like of the concept of Wu Wei, or the concept of non-doing or effective ease, effortless ease.
Totally. It's I look at it to act without governing. And
it's almost, actually, you say that, it reminds you of the Dragon Ball Super at the moment. There's this Ultra Instinct mode where it's like you don't think, because if you're in battle and you have to think, there's time delay between the thought and the movement. So it's letting the body just react on its own, both in defense and offense. And when you reach this point, it's like the ultimate form at the moment with this Dragon Ball Super. I'm like, that's totally what we want to cultivate when we're standing, when we're meditating. I say meditating, but it's like living. Living is the meditation.
Yeah. That's why kind of these days my experience of meditation is just doing my best to be present with what is, whatever that is, and it's always changing, of course.
So you don't have a formal practice where you stand, or you?
Yeah, I do. I kind of see it like a bookend these days. Of like, I consider that every day we're living, and also you wake up, I'm alive again, and you go to sleep, you kind of die a bit. You breathe in life, you breathe out, you're kind of dying a bit as well. And that in itself was a challenging thing to ponder, that just the transient nature of life.
Well, it's exactly what you said about, that not seeing things as good or bad. If we're constantly breathing in and living and alive and inspiring inspiration, and then we're exhalating, dying, then, and they're both existing at the same time in order to have this thing called life, then how can either of those be good or bad, or how can they not be both good and bad?
Totally. Yeah. So considering that, I wake up and I have a form of standing practice, and that just really allows me to just go, okay, when I slept, considering this is a new day, I'm kind of teleported into this body, do my best to be fresh with it and just go, what's this like? What's this thing kind of all about? What are these little kind of clumps that I'm standing on, and all that sort of thing. And then, I do that for a period of time, and it kind of, I'm a bit gentle with it. I started off very regimented, like I must stand for this amount of time and do these practices in this order. But in time, it started to, I've allowed myself to be a bit more creative and expressive with it.
And the practice will often, I'll find myself in poses I don't even know what the fuck they are, but the body's, it feels good and it wants to do it. So it's just the practice will come through.
Yeah, exactly. So, it started off in a very neutral way, and then I started to look at, different arm postures and all of these sorts of different things. And now it's kind of a vehicle for me to look at, what would it be like if I was in this really challenging situation? How would I find a sense of ease where I'm at? This nice little fun game, a little bit that I take. And as I've been doing this over time, I've noticed that there are more and more subtle experiences that affect the very visceral experiences that we have of the body. And I found that really interesting. Like, when you have a signal, like, what is the level of perception that I can perceive that signal at, before it turns into the pain? It might be just this small little kind of droplet in the water. Maybe I'm only experiencing the fourth or fifth ripple. So that's why I find it really useful to go into standing in an active way. I can start to perceive in that posture, in that position that I'm in, all of these subtle signals that lead towards, the feeling of tension and that sort of thing. And if I can understand it well before it happens, then it's a really nice way of...
Prevention is better than cure, isn't it?
Yeah, totally. And it's I think, like, not necessarily I'm looking to prevent an outcome, but I'm ready I'm ready way before, like what you're saying before.
Preparation.
Totally. It's and like that.
I guess with that would come with confidence, wouldn't it? There'd be a certainty, it's a clarity and a confidence that would come from knowing what's to come, and like, all right, cool, I'm prepared for that, because I know, like, oh, there's enemies at 10,000 meters away. All right, let's get prepared.
Yeah, you know, and that's kind of like life, you know, like you have these moments, and if if I can be really attuned to myself, then I might not have all the tools, but it's like a deep knowing that I will be able to do something.
Be capable and able.
Yeah, I'll be able to adapt. If it's an opponent like going, hey, like, fuck you, man, like, you know, it actually happened a little while ago. I was practicing standing meditation in a park,
Mm.
and these two guys in the car were like, I just said, he's like, you want to fucking fight, man? And I'm just literally standing there. And, it was fun. And I'm just sitting there and I'm like, do I?
Let me feel into this for a second.
Really interesting moment, yeah, where in the past, that was a big thing, big moment for me, actually, because, you know, I never wanted to get in a fight and all that sort of thing. And so, you know, I've been punched in the head enough now by choice that I'm like, well, if it happens, it happens, you know. I'm ready for what comes. But anyway, so that was just an interesting moment. So I ended up just standing there, and I looked at them, and I don't know, then they just drove away. Obviously, they weren't truthful in their intent, but yeah. So I stand at the start of the day, or different forms of it, and also at the end of the day, so I can kind of check in. Oh, what happened today? You know, maybe I had a conversation, or maybe I was working with a student and I took on something that I didn't realize at the time. You know, I sort of have noticed that the body is a permeable membrane. You know, stuff is always going in and out of it, whether we're aware of it or not.
Like a sponge, right?
Yeah, totally. You know, and if we can get better at kind of like attuning to what's going in and also being able to ring it out, you know, letting the stuff that's not for our highest good to leave.
And that's as simple as the breath, right? Like we were talking about, as simple as breathing in. We can breathe in and absorb what we want, goodness, and intend that, and then exhale. We can disperse and open and die and dissolve into nothing, right?
Yeah, and you know, like in that standing posture, it's really interesting just noticing things like breathing. You know, like started to notice the effect my pause have with the act of breathing. You know, and how that my body is actually breathing. I'm getting kind of goosebumps thinking about it now. Just you know, it's just, we're not just breathing through here, right? Yeah, just taking it in. And so it's just awakened a lot of joy and wonderment about, like, what is it to be living and to be alive? Yeah, it's just something that it fills me with happiness, you know. And
what do you go on?
Go.
I was going to say, so you're working fitness with yourself, were you working with other people? Were you training other people as well to get them strong as well, or just yourself? And where have you moved into? I said after that spine injury, like your spine looks pretty straight and pretty healthy now. And you know what I mean? Like what was the recovery process like? And is that still happening, or you feel like you're 100% now, or like, and also, I'm just going to add more parts to this question is how are you working with people now, and what are you sharing with them? What kind of people come to you, and what kind of results do they find?
Yeah, totally. Well, in short, yes, my full-time work is sharing what I've learned, experienced to other people now. And yes, a bit of the process I went through was it took me probably from the moment I woke up and couldn't walk. It was about, I would say, about 3 years until I could wake up and kind of not feel a bit vulnerable in my physical structure. And then from that time, there was kind of maybe a year of sort of toing and froing with it.
So what were you doing for the 3 years? Like, was it like you actively seeking to feel better? Or?
I spent probably a year kind of just going, what the hell is going on? And just trying to find...
So you still had a crunch spine over that year?
Yeah, totally. And so it would go... It was really interesting. There were so many things that I noticed of like how my thoughts and emotions affected that, you know, like I could have a really kind of, you know, some days things happen and it's just sort of like revelations, and all of a sudden body's like, whew, amazing. And then other days it just comes back and you're kind of being pulled at that vice grip. And so I was really going through this roller coaster ride. And, like there was some relief from, I had a good chiropractor that I saw, but after seeing them for maybe 6 months, I noticed that I was starting to get into a rhythm of, they just adjust the same areas in my body. It was just like, oh, hey, bom, bom, bom. And
your body will slowly go back to where it was, and that just correct.
Exactly. And then I go back and I'm like, why is this keep still happening? So I just continue to ask these questions and give myself permission to explore my body a little bit more. But in the beginning, I had to unlearn a lot of things, because my whole life, probably from the age of 14, like up until the point of injury, was very kind of structured sports, strength and conditioning based training.
This is with the volleyball and stuff. And
and not to mention, like, sports in their own right are wonderful, but they're also very, as far as movement patterns are concerned, very imbalanced. I would jump off the same foot, I would hit with the same hand, rinse and repeat by thousands of repetitions.
So they're going to be one side. Like you look at Rafa Nadal, for instance, got the massive left arm, and or you got the basketball players can only go the one way, or
all of that. So I was prepared for sport, but I wasn't prepared for life. Which seems funny, right?
Well, that's actually, there's a big piece there around what the work I'm doing, the work you're doing. Like I'm looking to bring a lot of these concepts, mindfulness, and bringing mindfulness to the movement, and mindfulness to cultivate more energy, and to create more space and more purpose and more presence and more gratitude, and all of these pieces that are actually neglected in a lot of sports, a lot of workplaces, a lot of like education. This is the piece I want to bring in. I want to see everybody practicing some form of mindfulness, so that there's a balance. So we're not just in the schools, we're not just working with the mind only, we're actually bringing physical, and we're bringing spiritual, if you want to call it that, in as well, energetic. And then with the sports as well, there's people, that they got the nutrition good, they've got the nourishment is all, they've got that on lock, and they've got the discipline on lock, and they've got the physical on lock, but there's neglecting of the spiritual side, and that balance side that you mentioned, and that presence. So if we bring that in, all of these areas, the education, the business world, the sports world, will all actually get this other piece that I don't feel is being nourished, and their whole results are going to go to a whole nother level. I've worked with many athletes who do this stillness, who do the standing meditation, who do the presence practice, the gratitude practice, and all of their KPIs go up. So it's definitely a missing piece that isn't necessarily being addressed at the moment.
Yeah, totally. We've got to nourish the soul.
100%. And so many is starving, right?
Yeah. They're just like, not even the will is blocking the ability to eat, and so
carry on there with the imbalance you were saying. I just interrupted.
Anyway, so the first part was a lot kind of, I'd get some relief, I'd feel better, and then I'd go back to what I was doing before, and then the same shit would happen. And it took me a long time to go.
Hang on a sec.
Wait.
Hang on a sec.
Yeah, because
I'm paying money for this thing that is just getting you to baseline, right?
Yeah, totally. And like the thing was with it all is I had no idea about my own body. I was totally just giving away. It's just like, I got this issue.
Fix me.
Fix it, right? And they're kind of like doing the best they can, with a real shit situation. I wasn't, it's like a friendship, and I'm like coming there and I'm not offering anything to it. You imagine that sort of friendship, it's not going to last.
As in you would go back and do all the things that would actually not necessarily help your situation.
Yeah, because I just didn't know any better. I didn't know.
Would they assign you particular practices or exercises?
Sometimes, but it was all too shallow. Like it was just like when I went to physio in Austria, like they gave a little bit more of like corrective exercise and that sort of thing of like, do this little kind of thing with a TheraBand, and do these little kind of things, right? focus on this muscle and that muscle, and it was all still just focusing on the symptom. Like it wasn't even addressing, as I've looked back at it in hindsight, that the body is a completely inseparable organism. It's one piece. Something's going on somewhere. It's affecting everything, right?
Find the cause, right?
Yeah. So I might think I might have a signal and go, well, this is where I have the pain, so that's where I need to stretch or strengthen. But there's 5 other things that are connected to it that I'm not even noticing. And it might be an organ system that's just not getting blood flowing to it properly. And on that ripples out, and it manifests into something going on at some point of the spine or something like that, you know? So you can't address that with just a little
TheraBand.
Right? You know, maybe with the right intent. You're really aware of what's going on. But I just found if I couldn't be aware of my own body in whatever exercise I was doing, then I was still only really addressing symptoms. I was putting out a fire, and then all of a sudden another fire pops up, and another and another and another. And, you know, it just wasn't working. And so a lot of people that I work with are having those similar challenges. And it's not just whether they're in pain and that sort of things. Lots of people that I work with from that perspective, whether they've had a big traumatic event like a car accident and that sort of thing, and they're kind of just, they need to release that longer term, you know.
So are you working with repatterning and the neurological structures and I guess wiring kind of the body and the brain connection? And
totally, yeah. And ultimately not in a generic way, because everyone has their own journey, I've noticed, and we can rewire all that sort of stuff, but it has to be deeply aligned with, you know, this person.
So in terms of what, like in terms of their values, or in terms of their lifestyle, or in terms of their diet, like how specifically?
Yeah, all of that, you know. It's I tend to not talk about diet too much, because I notice that that's something that sorts itself out once we're kind of attuned with our body.
As in the body will reach for whatever it needs.
In a way, yeah. It's like these days, you know, I've gone through a lot of different ways of eating, and I probably had a borderline eating disorder even while I like looked really good, you know, because I was like, food is an active chemistry of, you know, like these macronutrients. But I was just so focused on the way I looked, I actually forgot the way that the food felt going in. You know, I had all these digestive challenges, all that stuff, right? Anyway, all these things could lead off into lots of different topics. But I've just noticed when I do work with people that, like, they might, let's say in the beginning.
Yeah, let's give us an example of someone who might come to you, and give us an example of what you might do and work through, and how that might, the flow of that interaction and that relationship might go.
Yeah, so when I start working with people, and these days people mainly come to me through referral from other people, and I love to work with people ready to do the work. You know, it's not easy, it's deeply transformative.
What tells you if someone's ready and someone's not? Do you have like a process? Do you have a questionnaire? Do you have a screening process? Like what tells you that?
I have a chat with people, and a lot of me kind of just has a bit of a bullshit radar.
So it's just an awareness of like, all right, this person's saying the right words, but you're not feeling it.
Exactly, totally. There's that. And also, like, I'm not too regimented, but I need to know if someone's like actually ready to let go of the things that might be holding them back.
Can you give us an example of some of the, like, what would tell you that someone is ready versus you know that this person is
totally. And of course, all of this is not an absolute. This is just my perspective with people. So, you know, they might say, you know, I really want to get flexible, right? You know, I'm tight and all that sort of thing. But they're not, and they've done stretching, they've done all these different things. And I might question them and say, are you willing to just stop even exercising, right? And I might just look at the response in that situation, and we've got to first be willing to, like, success is measured by that which you're willing to let go of, you know? And so if we're not willing to come into stillness, then there's too much stuff going on. So we can't get the clarity to actually start to do the thing that we need most. Maybe it is stretching, or maybe it's something different.
But stopping long enough for us to be able to hear what we actually need, right?
Exactly. So there's lots of different examples, but it's...
And even that, if someone said no, or someone said yeah, but there wasn't you could feel that there wasn't true, that would actually show that there's an inflexibility in the thinking, right? So
yeah, and maybe like that might be, I could judge that person and go, oh, they're not ready to work with me. Or maybe they see that and go, yeah, you know what, I am struggling, and I know I've got lots of stuff going on, but I'm ready to do what I need to do, and trust, not just in me. I don't need people to go, like, I'm not their guru, right? But trust that they can change. It's a readiness to allow the natural process of change to occur. And there's lots of things that would indicate someone's readiness. But it's not just like, I'm doing this because someone said it's good for me, or because I think it's good, or because I think you're good, or anything like that. It's not. When I work with someone, it's a two-way street. I ask for commitment, and I give a lot as well. And so I suppose I've learned, because I love to give, and I'm probably a bit of a compulsive overgiver sometimes.
I can relate to that 100%.
Like I need to make sure that when I do give, people are ready to receive.
Yeah.
It's a big two-way teaching process as well. Like, I'm always learning too. So, and at the end of the day, I just love working with people I love.
Yeah, 100%. Do what you love. It seems to be the way forward. Like this.
Yeah.
As we get older and older, we realize that there's not enough time. There's not enough time, I guess. It's like, well, I haven't got time to do shit I don't love doing.
Yeah. It just becomes a drain of energy, and no one wins in that game. Not that we need to have a winner and loser, but
But win-win-win situations are good though. That they seem to be better for everyone involved. In terms of what sort of stuff, I always am interested in people who are like specialists, or have like, a really kind of sharp focus on whatever it is that they're into. I'm always curious about what are the common, I guess, issues, challenges, problems that people come to you with, and what do you hear yourself repeating a lot of the time? So is there anything like that for you?
Yeah, there's definitely commonalities. And like, I work with lots of different type of people, from people who have, had one of my students came back from cancer from a very young age and had to have part of their hip removed, So like, that is a very specific situation. And even though the structure, like the bone structures, can't change, we can change the soft tissue networks and the neural pathways and all of that sort of thing, but he will still have the same question that someone who, for instance, let's say I work with quite a number of people who are in, quite high profile work situations and that sort of thing. Like, they own companies and they're pretty busy in their life. And they're like, let's say their focus is very much like this in everything, If they go to the gym, it's just like, boom, I'm doing my workout, that sort of thing, right? So I look at the common themes of particularly starting to broaden the focus and seeing, I have a saying of, the way you wash the dishes is the way you do life,
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah, totally. So
the way you eat a lollipop.
Yeah, the way you do anything.
Right.
So there's lots of common themes in people's relationship with themselves, and it tends to be, if I were to categorize it, people who have spent a long time focusing, either on the future or on the past, but they haven't really mastered their present reality, connecting with their body, connecting with what they really, truly, deeply need, beyond what they think they need or they want and all of that sort of thing. And so, like, one of the first things that I do when I work with people is we do a little exercise I call the 3-word intent, where I get them to pick 3 words, just the first 3 words that kind of come to mind. And we might choose all 3 or just hone in on one. And then I'm really interested in is like, what are the inequalities that would allow that to actually, like, you swallow it up and you become that thing, you know? Maybe it's like someone had an intention towards like fluidity, you know, or ease and that sort of thing. So we might notice, okay, well, if that experience of ease is something you'd like to have, then what's in between you and that experience? You know, so then as we go into a physical practice, they can continue to refer back to that very simple intent, you know, because at the beginning when you've gone through like this, maybe your body's not the most safe or pleasant space for you to occupy. I like to keep it simple, you know. And so it's just like, okay, I'm just going to take this word, this intention into my practice. And over time, that word the meaning of it starts to expand and change. And maybe the word itself changes when you realize, you know, that's not relevant anymore, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, so that exercise alone starts a really, really powerful journey, I've noticed, for people. And whether it's, you could be doing a squat, a handstand, a cartwheel, or just standing still, and the difference of the way you experience it often just comes down to the intention behind it. So that's where, like, that one layer alone is a massive, like, shift for a lot of people who haven't really started to focus on what quality would I like to embody. You know?
What energy am I bringing to my experience in any given moment, right?
You know, it's like sometimes I challenge my students if they're finding a movement hard and that sort of thing, and let's say their intention is around joy, you know, I sometimes say, well, why are you seeking anything else in the movement that you're doing?
Other than the movement.
Like, who said that joy is a future reality? What if you could experience it right now? How would you go about it? And then all of a sudden they stop trying to push themselves into this future reality that they're really attached to, and they start to actually realize that I can touch that right now, and then plant a seed to grow more of that. You know? I suppose that's why I love gardening, you know, and seeing what grows, you know.
100%. And more tree, more chi.
Totally. You know,
100%. In terms of that, how you do anything is how you do everything. It's something I love. I teach a lot of people that concept as well. It's that, you know, hider is hide. It's like how you do anything is how you do everything. It's that alone can change everything. It's like, oh, it is. It's like the way that I make the bed in the morning, you know, and, you know, I leave a little bit left, like I don't completely get it perfect or whatever, you know, and I do that in everything in life, or I have to do it perfectly, and I'm really regimented with it, and that's like the rest of my life. Like, it just brings a whole new awareness to things.
Totally. Yeah, and if I can't do it perfectly, I won't do it at all. Or like maybe I'm just like, I have to get it perfect, you know, and I just like forever I'm like, you know, and then I'm looking for all the imperfections, and, you know, like, so like a lot of the things at the foreground are movement and the way that we interact with those movements. And then along the way, there's little things that I might challenge someone, you know, like while they're around their practice, you know, look at a flower just for 5 minutes and just look at it, just really be present with the flower. And such profound, interesting things can come up. Maybe it's like, I notice like how amazing the flower is, or maybe I notice all the little imperfections where the bugs have eaten it and that sort of thing. And then we use that and take it through a process of observation. And that in itself is a skill, you know, as you would know as well. It's, if we can get better at observing without an attached idea of what it is that we're looking at, then all of a sudden these possibilities beyond maybe what the imagination's current capacity is start to open up, you know. And like, I just notice a lot of a beautiful byproduct that comes out is people's creativity and their imagination, like when we're kids, you know, I used to love doing, and I still, now I notice that kid in me is coming out again. Like, I would kind of make stuff and like dig and play and get dirty and all these sorts of things. And I just look at the world differently, not by this sort of blinders perspective. And so as we cultivate that skill, the imagination of what's actually possible for our bodies starts to expand, and then so the reality can change. Yeah, but in the beginning, a lot of people, they don't know what's possible. You know, that they have an idea of that maybe deep inside they believe that this experience, you know, sort of like, okay, Benny, humor me. You know, I'm willing to give it a shot, but I don't really yet believe that I can feel anything different, right? Because I've felt this way for 30 years. So, like, regardless of the person, whether they're an athlete, whether they've like been in pain for however many years, they do share common experiences just in their own like inner development. I don't try and force that process, but I do honor it, that you know, with that physical body, there's a mind and there's emotions, and you know, there's a soul. Maybe I don't even know what that is exactly, but it's this thing that's deep inside of us that knows that there's something more.
Well, you know that it's when it's there and when it's not. If you've ever seen someone die, or you've seen, you know, there's a moment where there's an animation of the being, and there's a moment when there's not. Like, it's very clearly, you know, if you've ever witnessed that, you can see and feel, and it's quite obvious, you know.
Yeah. It was. I sadly came to a local swimming hole near where I live, where a gentleman had passed, and when he was pulled out of the water, I'd never seen like someone like just not alive in real life. It was quite a confronting thing for me, actually, and I just couldn't see. There was like the color was gone, and anyway, little experiences like that, however challenging, have started to awaken me to the possibility that maybe there's something more beyond what I can touch and feel in the physical. And I enjoy attempting to touch that, you know, and sharing that with other people.
And how did you come to enjoy it? Because I'm the same. I'm similar. I'm always trying to listen to what I can't hear, trying to feel what I can't actually feel, and see what I can't see. So for me, it's just like a lot of the undercurrent of what I'm getting from what you're sharing is this sense of curiosity and inquisitiveness and almost this like welcoming wonder. So for me, that kind of comes naturally in a way. I don't know if it's like my upbringing or what it is, or how it's my character traits or whatever, my personality, whatever you want to call it, or if it's like a conscious choice of, no, actually, I'm actually going to go and search out. It's like a scientific kind of, I wonder what will happen. It's or engineer. I wonder how this works. I'm going to break it apart. Like, is it something that you've found comes more and more, like with the people you work? You said, humor me, Benny. But then when they do the practice, is it people's willingness to actually be still, and that sort of comes naturally? That's kind of a human nature type thing, or what have you found?
Yeah, well, so for me, I would say that this inquisitiveness does come naturally, but I didn't realize that for a long time, you know. Really, you know, I went to a pretty strict school and that sort of thing. So, and I was led to believe at some point throughout that like you got to kind of do the right thing, and you got to put all the, you know, the color inside the lines and
fit into the box, and this is how things should look, right?
If you don't, then like you're not really worth anything. It sounds intense. Over time, as that started to kind of wash away, I realized that there are things just within me, but beyond even my personality, that just I get pulled towards things, and I kind of don't know why. I really like going deeply into things like that. That's why I think I got into, like, I gave practices like standing meditation time, because I just knew that even though on the surface my reasoning mind was kind of going, dude, what are you doing?
The fuck am I doing standing here? This is this hurts. This is painful.
Yeah, it's like, this sucks. But then there was this other part of me that was really quiet at the time, that was almost very cathartic, and was like, no, just stay here. And anyway, so that voice has grown in time. And so like, I don't know how it's going to manifest in people, but I do notice that there is this voice. It's not just the rational constructs of reason and all of that sort of thing that can really start to guide us through the way we do things. And I love watching people find their way. You know, when they realize, you know, the job that I once hated, I actually am starting to really enjoy it again, rather than kind of going, well, change the job. No, change the way you relate with it. And then if you still feel like the job's not right, then you've got all this space to do something different, you know? So, I love the on-flow effects of just really connecting deeply with that voice inside through the body. You know, that's my medium.
So it sounds like a lot of what you share with people, I don't know, just maybe paint a little bit of a picture in terms of what specifically. So someone might come to you and say, hey, I've had this back issue, or I've had this issue for 30 years. And you go, okay, cool, give me your 3 intention words. And then what do you say? We're going to work together for a month, a year? Like, how's it sort of work? And what do you sort of assign them and prescribe them and diagnose, all that sort of stuff?
Yeah. So I choose to work with people for at least a 3-month period. And that allows us, really in that first 3 months, it allows us to build a good foundation. You know, throughout that time, we catch up, you know, about 6 times, so kind of once every couple of weeks. And the first time we catch up, it's just really a big deep dive, and I'm going into full observation mode of just looking at, okay, where is this person? And I might look at like big aspects of like, where do they live most of their life from? And I look at things like, you know, there's big energy centers in the body, and I kind of look at it through the perspective of like this one, and this one, you know. I'm like looking at all of these things, like, where's that person living from? And if they're spending all their time up here, where could they spend a bit more time, you know, inhabiting, right? So from there, I'll look at what is the highest need. And that might be a quality, for example, because I build everything around principles. I'm not interested in movements or exercises, but I'm interested in movement, you know, just as a general context. So I've found over the years that there's certain principles that support that. So for instance, the principle of sinking weight. Yeah. So like, or, you know, in Eastern medicine, that sort of thing, like sinking the chi, you know, to become sung, which is, it's not quite relaxation, but I think you know what I mean.
It's like how I describe it is like a firm yet totally relaxed.
Totally, yeah. It's like, it's soft and
it's like solid yet flexible.
Totally. So like that quality is, once you start to embody that, that opens up a big other can of worms. And there's ways that I've found that are useful, like consistently have worked for people, and I keep evolving all the time. But so I might look at that one quality of like, maybe this person is like, in terms of their physical structure, they kind of, a lot of their energy, their effort, all that sort of, it goes up here. And so all their body, kind of the tension rises up, and there's sort of like this kind of upside down triangle, you know? So they feel disconnected. They feel like unstable and out of balance all the time, and things shake them quite easily. So like our first intent might be to start to turn that thing around, you know, and become this big base. So let's say we did a practice like standing meditation, and it wouldn't always be that we did that practice, but it's just a useful example because we've been talking about it. Then in that, we would actually have some practices, but really focus on that principle of sinking weight. First need to become present of all of the conditioning and all of the habits that are causing this rising. And then start to be able to...
This is called the shallow breath, the overactive mind,
right?
The high blood pressure, all this sort of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. There's so many symptoms that can result. And if I just focused on an exercise, this is where I find a lot of people get stuck, and don't honor that principle, then I'm just kind of piling shit on shit.
It's like band-aiding.
Totally. And I'm just not really into that. And, you know, so.
Well, I'm the same. It's like oftentimes we'll work with somebody and they'll go and have an amazing life and they don't need to see me again. And I'm like, you know, it's like shit business model, but it's fucking amazing. Like it's the best because
I say that all the time, right?
it's like, I don't want you to be dependent on me.
Exactly. It's about coming to a place of self-empowerment. And I've found actually it's the opposite, that when people do have such profound shifts, they tell everyone about it.
Word of mouth, right?
And then they're like, oh, you helped this person and this person, and they told me about it, and then they get together, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, I'd like some of that.
Yeah.
So I've noticed, you know, from a business perspective, it actually makes sense. If I focus on getting someone to a point of non-reliance, of self-empowerment, then like that's my job done. You know, it's actually really draining to.
And you can work with more people.
Exactly. You know, it's just like I can sit in the river, you know, and kind of go with it.
So one of my dreams, actually, one of my visions that it keeps coming to me is that I want to be like sitting around a fire, just chilling out, enjoying food, cooking food, song, talking. And I literally have people who come to me from all around the world. We have a conversation, they go and change the world and change their lives. Like, that's it. Like, they just come to me and it's done. It's like almost like the Oracle on the Matrix, or, you know, they comes in and.
Yeah, totally. It's I had a moment like that. I was sitting having some lunch with an Indigenous elder in Sydney, and you know, we were eating our lunch, and he's like, "Oh, isn't this all very sophisticated?" He's glancing out the window, and he goes, "Like, look at the tree. You know, it doesn't do anything, yet everything it needs is drawn towards it." You know, so I suppose I practice that to a degree of doing my best to just allow the things that I need to come toward me, and you know that often means really interesting people. And yeah, I love that I'm granted the ability to be able to share a process with them. You know, so.
And where did that come from in terms of your urge, I guess, or your want to share and to help people and to really work with others? And, you know, if you've learned something, does that, I know for me, it sort of comes naturally. If like, oh, I've got this thing, I want to share it with people. Like food, if food is delicious, it doesn't taste anywhere near as good if I'm eating it by myself than when I share it. So is that something that has arisen naturally in you, or something you've always liked, or some other people, like, I don't know, your family or your mentors or anything, you know, they've sort of instilled that in you? Or
Yeah. I've noticed that it's something that I've enjoyed doing for as long as I can remember. You know, like when I was, you know, even when I was a kid and I was in the gym and stuff, I just was interested in things, you know. I didn't always have all the answers, but I was really interested in it. And I think with that, it becomes contagious of like, this guy's kind of interested in this thing. I'm going to ask him about this thing. And then, you know, if I didn't have the answer, I'd go off and I'd experiment with something, or I'd explore something, or I'd research, or, you know, that always didn't lead to the right path, you know, trying to find information. But I'd kind of like, you know, someone, you know, a long time ago, I'm not a nutritionist or anything, but people were like, oh, you know, eggs are bad, right? You know, they're going to give me cholesterol. And I was like, well, I don't necessarily agree with that. For some reason, and you know, I understood some science and that sort of thing, but then I was like, all right, so what I'm going to do for 30 days is just have a dozen eggs a day and just get my cholesterol tested, and then let's just see what happens.
Love it.
And my cholesterol actually, interestingly, went down a little bit during that time, which is quite. I felt a little different because my body, I suppose, was getting used to, you know, that such change food source. And if I look at it from a Chinese medicine perspective now, maybe not have been the wisest decision. However,
now you know, Liz, how your body's going to react is going to be totally different to how someone
totally exactly react, right? You know, so at least from that place I could say, well, you know what, maybe it's not, you shouldn't just have that black and white idea of this equals that. You know, so I like to do my best to set an example and then inspire other people along the way. So, you know, and that's happened in lots of different areas of my life I've noticed. So I suppose, I don't know, like people call me a teacher and that sort of thing. I don't know whether I'm a teacher. I really enjoy sharing stuff, and people.
You're a sharer.
Yeah.
If you want to get all labely about it.
Totally.
So,
Yeah. You know what I mean. But
I'm the same. I don't enjoy teaching personally. Like, it's not something that comes naturally to me. I'm a bit weird about it. I'm like, I have some stuff, and if it helps you, awesome. Take it or leave it.
Yeah.
But it's not something that is my genius. I don't necessarily like to have the information and then give it to people and have them take. Like, that's not my genius. Like, I love coaching and facilitating. I love watching and witnessing the realization of potential. That's where my genius lies, and mentorship. As I get a bit older, I'm sort of getting into that, like sharing my path that I've walked. Yes. But it's not necessarily something I lean toward. So I totally get that piece there. Something was coming up as you were talking then. So it was the idea of transmission and direct transmission. And so you were talking about embodying and try to be, being the example and living what you're, walking the talk essentially.
Yes.
How important do you feel that is in your own, like if you're learning something, if you're going to, whether it's your martial arts or whether it's you're going to a seminar and someone's teaching you something, or, like reading a book, whatever it might be, how important what's your experience with the transmission and the direct transmission and intention? We've been talking about a lot lately.
Yes.
What's been your experience with that, and is it important? How have you experienced it? That sort of stuff.
Yeah. Well, my interpretation of that question is absolutely critical. These days, I can't. I find it difficult to entertain company if I'm looking to learn something that doesn't embody that thing, because information's cheap these days. Like
Google.com, right?
Yeah, like it's easy to regurgitate and all that sort of stuff, and like I do really strongly experience that feeling is understanding. It's not you can't, for instance, someone could read a book about meditation or something like that.
Could read 200 of them.
Yeah, like you can read the Tao Te Ching or whatever, and like, but do you really understand it? Do you is it like an isness in you? And that's what I'm interested in, is being in the presence of that. And then often I realized that the thing that I really wanted to learn was not actually the thing I needed to learn. So, and that might be like, I was saying before, I recently started wood turning. There's this guy, Vince, who to me is like the Yoda of wood turning, right? He, just by osmosis, I've become a better wood turner. Not by him trying to go do this technique, do that technique. There is a powerful transmission, like you were saying before, in the fact that it's an extension of himself.
He lives it, right? He is it.
Totally. Like, I'll like be doing something and I'll get stuck on something. He'll just come up, grab the chisel and he'll just go like that. Like I love people like Picasso and stuff. Such certainty in that line that they've drawn. And like that one line gives me bloody goosebumps. If you can do that one line, then you can be a virtuoso artist.
And that's how you do anything, how you do everything, right? Embodying that confidence, that certainty, that I'm going for it, I'm doing this.
Yeah. So I do my best to be that when I share things with people, and it means that I have made a lot of mistakes, and I've had a lot of ups and downs, and I've got things wrong a lot of times, and in that there's a certain kind of like almost a way of navigating situations in life that I just apply to physical well-being, and that sort of emotional, mental also comes into it as well. And so I do my best to practice what I preach, and I very rarely, I would say never actually, I don't like to use definitives too much, but go to impart something that I've read in a book or something like that. Just, I can't touch and feel it, I can't share it with someone. And yeah, so.
And what do you find in terms of like the teachers and you have with, you know, with martial arts or with movement and training, all this stuff?
Yes.
Have you felt, like you said, the wood training was one example. What
Yes.
do you feel you've been imparted? Like, have you felt like one person is just regurgitating stuff and then the other person actually lives it, and you feel a difference in the learning of it? Like, how do you discern when you're learning?
So for instance, when I did Taekwondo, and I only learned this, I didn't learn this in the moment. It was only in hindsight, and actually by, you know, a couple of friends' kids and stuff, I've gone, you know, I've taken them to Taekwondo and that sort of thing, and just, you know, kind of watched and observed. But I realized at the time, like I was doing a lot of forms, you know, and that sort of thing. And, you know, you have certain scenarios and that sort of thing where, like, someone pulls a knife, you know, your plastic kind of scenario knives, right? When they do the knife, then you do that, and then ha, and, you know, like all of that sort of thing. And it's like, oh, sure, that could have value, but for me, it seemed to just kind of, it's just like, this is the way we've kind of always done it, and it creates it can create this beautiful discipline and all of that sort of thing. But for me, like in a fight, if that's going to happen, or if I'm exchanging with someone at a martial perspective, I really need to be attuned to myself. I really need to be attuned to the person and the environment. So some of my teachers, I think I saw, you know, him having a cigarette. You know, not that like that's a bad thing necessarily. You know, each their own.
A lot of the teachers smoke tobacco nonstop.
Yeah, you know, and like, anyway, I'm not going to get into that, but it just, there was this disharmony between, like, here's this person who's supposed to be a role model, a mentor, and that sort of thing. You can teach someone to punch and kick, but that's all that you're teaching. You know, and
that's the technique versus principle, right? That's not why I stay away from techniques and exercise as well, and move more into principle. Totally. If I'm teaching an exercise, it's more about the principle.
Yeah. You know, like this young man that I took to Taekwondo. Like, we did a few things. You know, he had some stuff going on with his body, and I was just like, "Oh, show me your forms," and that sort of thing. And so he'd go, he's quite good. He's a red belt and that sort of thing. So he's about to get his play. And which I suppose in most martial arts, I'm not a black belt in anything, but my perception is that that's when you start, you know. But
anyway, that's the beginning of the journey.
Yeah. That's when you start.
That's when you have an idea of what you're doing.
Yeah, you like got enough to kind of to start to self-cultivate, you know, and start your own process, I suppose, of discovery in that art. And anyway, so I just did one thing. Just as he was doing it, I just noticed he wasn't really connected with, like, the ground. So I just said, all right, you do that, and I'm just going to challenge you and I'm just going to push you a little bit while you're doing your things. And all I'd like you to do is just do your best to, like, just be in your center, be balanced, you know. And in the beginning, he was kind of like, he'd see me coming and he would tense up and that sort of thing. And then he'd sort of go a bit floppy. And eventually he started to kind of get this midpoint, and he's like, oh my God, my punches and my kicks feel so much more powerful. And I didn't talk once about do this punch better or do that kick better and all the little nitty-gritty things that he could have done. Just focus on that one thing, and it completely changed, you know. So I didn't see any of that when I went to his club. And that's not a judgment on the teachers or anything, because they've got lots of kids, and there's the parents, and they're like, teach my kids something. And there's just something not quite right with that whole dynamic of, like, teaching and imparting knowledge and allowing people to find their own wisdom. Whereas in the past, you know, I love, like, Greek philosophy and, you know, like the old school gymnasiums, which were kind of like a place of, like, physical kind of prowess and philosophy. you know, and, you know, the times of Socrates and all of that sort of thing, where there was this deep wisdom that was imparted with the other things that they were doing. And, yeah, you know, I like to romanticize about those times, you know.
It's holistic, and we're creating it as you're living it now. You know, this is when someone steps into the office, it's kind of what's happening. And do you work with people mostly in person? You mentioned you work online a lot of the time. Like, how do you work with people who's doing movement and physicality when they're not physically in front of you?
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. So I would say probably 90% of people I work with are just via this medium over Skype or Zoom or whatever digital kind of video chat thing. And I had to disprove my own assumptions. Like it just sort of happened, to be honest, of people would find out about me through, you know, my website and that sort of thing. And they would then contact me, and, you know, they're in Austria, you know, like, and a few of my students from Austria have come over, you know, and learned with me in person since then, which is like, I was dumbfounded when that happened, you know. But I at the start, I was like, look, I don't know if this is going to work. I don't, like, you know, I'm used to put my hands on you and stuff, you know, like
experiment,
sort of tactile feedback, you know. But I realized actually it works as good or better sometimes. Because what it does is I know that when I'm around someone, there's a certain space that's created. And when someone goes away, it's a stark contrast. Do you know what I mean? It's like, oh, I feel good, but then, like, I've noticed that the more I cultivate within myself, the more that overflows into other people. Someone might just walk in, and I've just noticed this. I haven't really tried to do it, but they just feel calm, or they start spontaneously crying or something. At the start, I was like, this is really weird. What's going on? But you notice it over and over. Anyway, so these days I find, because there is a bit of distance, physical distance, it means that when people get that experience, it's theirs. You know, like
they don't have that reliance that doesn't build up.
Exactly. So it's I find it's, you know, like one of my teachers said, you know, it's wise for the teacher to live 2 mountains apart from their student. You know, it's a bit of a saying, but distance is actually a really valuable asset, I've noticed. I didn't think it would be.
It's kind of cool. In terms of practical things that people can take away who are listening, watching this, what are some things you could do right now to help, you know, maybe some principles that they can take away? Like if they're listening to this, watching this, like, all right, cool, this is all cool, guys, there's nice stories and blah, blah. I'm sure they're getting a lot of value from this. I know I am. But is there any specific pieces that you can share? Like, all right, try this and this might help you with whatever is going on for you.
Yeah. Well, what I would say, linking with what we've talked about before, is at least entertain an intention for why it is that you're doing that thing, that physical activity. Even if you're going into a gym, like, why are you doing it really? You know, deep inside, like, you want to get strong. Why? You know, like, challenge yourself a little bit, you know, be open to growing in ways that you might not have perceived. Yeah. So the first thing is create an opportunity for a different way to relate with the way you're exercising, let's just say. Then I would say be present with what you're doing, you know, whether that is an increasingly present. So if you're doing an exercise, I don't mind if you're doing a squat or a bench press or something.
If you're doing press, like, feel everything, and where the breath and everything, right?
Yeah, feel how it's all connected, you know. So, like, entertain the possibility that there's no separation in your whole body. That if you can get in touch with that, it becomes a case of many hands make light work. You know, I would say
when you're being fully engaged, the whole body, mind, the outside, the spirit, going to be engaged. You're going to be able to lift stronger. You're going to be able to get more benefit on it. It's not going to just be a focused, and you're going to not be more susceptible. You're not going to be as susceptible to injury and things like this if you're distracted. And
Exactly. Yeah. So in particular, once the intention's really rich, it's much less likely that you get injured in those sorts of situations, because you just often putting your attention on like the things that you would like, and looking to experience more of that, rather than trying to strive for something and killing yourself in the process.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say another useful principle is slow down. Slow down in your movement in particular. Once again, the exercise doesn't matter, and there's lots of ways that I find really effective. But still, even if you didn't do that, slow down. Notice then every millimeter of the movement, and see if there's areas where you're like tensing up excessively in one area.
Mm.
And then you might notice there's a possibility for something else, to change those neurological pathways that are happening in that movement that might be a deeply ingrained habit because that's the way you've always done it.
Yeah.
So I say slow down to allow yourself to notice. It's like if I'm trying to improve the way someone runs, right? I'm running beside them and I'm like, extend your knee a little bit further and like breathe a bit deeper and like all these things. And they're like, dude, shut up, I'm running. We might focus on actually just starting to walk slowly, noticing the whole body in that action. And then as you can feel what's going on, then making it more complex as your own perception of what's going on expands. So slow down is a really useful principle.
Beautiful. Cheers for that. And in terms of what was just coming through then was this idea of focus. And imagine there's a lot of sports in particular, life as well. You said you work with executives and things like this. I'm thinking golf, it happens over a long time. I'm thinking cricket, if a long innings. I'm thinking baseball, it's long. I'm thinking basketball, that gets down to the crunch time at the end of the game. So the ability to focus for long periods of time, what do you have to share on that? Something that's really helped. I know, if you're doing standing meditation, that really helps, but is there anything that people can do? Because this is one of the biggest problems that a lot of people have with life in general, is the ability to focus with this kind of fast-paced society we're living in currently, with this, we've got the Twitter kind of 140 character, we've got the 15-second videos or the 1-minute videos, and, the attention span is really getting shot. So the ability to concentrate and focus on the one thing, do you have any pieces around that at all to share?
Yeah. And it's not necessarily going to be an easy pill to swallow. Is, like that, I suppose that sentiment is like, there's a lot of activity, all of that sort of thing. And it can, particularly if you're not like grounded, centered, connected within yourself, then it's like a balloon, that just gets moved around with the ever-changing currents of wind. So you need to change the quality of that balloon, or it's like a tree that's in these winds and doesn't have roots. So I would say, and I'll hopefully make it practical so it's not too
esoteric,
poetic, but like we need to grow our roots. You need to first have a base of like what's important to you, right? So I would say whatever you need to do to find that, do it. So whether, let's say, you got a cricketer and like you were saying sports and that sort of thing, like, and they're getting an injury because they're just focused so hard on like batting, and being the best batsman. Maybe they actually need to broaden their focus. Maybe even just explore batting on the other side, or like take up a different hobby to complement that. Maybe do some dancing or something like that, Or, the business exec and that sort of thing, who's really stressed, really focused, that sort of thing, lots of activity. They need to also start to learn to be comfortable with no activity, with stopping, with coming to stillness. So maybe that person just starts to just become aware of their breathing while they're doing. It doesn't mean that they need to kind of go to the mountains and meditate and all that sort of thing, but maybe just the way they relate with the activity that they're doing, just noticing as all those thoughts, and they're getting distracted, and the email's popping up, and a text message, and holy shit, it's all happening. Of just going, what's important to me now? And then all of a sudden that we get that tap to the ground, you know.
The taproot.
Totally. And that builds in time, right? Just by those small choices, it adds up a lot, you know? So ultimately I would say a useful vehicle that I found is to have a practice that you can commit some discipline to. So
it might be like taking one conscious breath a day or something like this.
Exactly. If that's it, just do it every day. You know, like set yourself, maybe it's useful at that time to cultivate a little bit of will and start to just go, you know what, there's freedom in discipline. You know, and from my experience, like discipline is the ultimate freedom.
Yeah, I'm exactly the same. I'm all about that. It came through actually one day. I was standing or dreaming. I think I was either waking up like in the morning dream, or it all gets a bit blurry. When I'm standing, I feel like it's a bit dreamy. So, and it came through. I was like, discipline is freedom, like clear as day. It was almost like a voice from source just shouting it at me like a neon sign. And then literally that morning, I checked my emails and I saw a podcast from, I think, Jocko Willink took over the Tim Ferriss podcast, and it was titled "Discipline is Freedom." And I was like, this motherfucker got he wrote a book and stuff like this. So I was like, tapping into the ether of ideas.
Computer on charge.
Oh, good. Yeah.
I'm listening.
The discipline is freedom piece is huge.
It's a massive thing, you know, so.
Especially people because I work with a lot of creatives and artists and, you know, these kind of free thinkers and non-status quo kind of people, entrepreneurs. And we're like, fuck structure. That
might be held down, you know? Yeah. But like my experience with creativity is like it's born from stillness. You know, it's born from nothingness. And I have had fleeting experiences of touching that. I can't contrive it. It's like that moment.
You can kind of hack it though. You can't there's some practices there's
definitely ways to get into there, and
there's some things that one of the ones was that can putting a constraint, for instance, like setting aside 10 minutes of creative time, but that you're only allowed 10 minutes. And then you do that for 90 days. After 30 days, you're like, I want to create, because you know, it's like builds up this surplus of the want to do the thing.
Totally. So you're having a practice, whatever it is, but a practice that it's got some depth to it. Like, I don't mean just kind of go to a yoga class and kind of just follow the guidance of a yoga teacher. Not that that's bad, but go to the yoga class and maybe just self-inquire as you're going there. Work out what's right for you. You know, no one can tell anyone how to live. You got to kind of work it out for yourself. And, I think we get shaken in my observations when we don't really know what our life's all about.
What's my intention?
Yeah, what's my intention? What's meaningful to me?
What's important to me?
Then when you can do that, then all of a sudden you can sift through the clutter and then go, that's the thing that's right for me now. And that thing. And that thing. And then all these 10,000 things compress upon you, and you're like, well, it's cool because I'm clear in myself. And that's what I mean by, you know, putting those roots down and stuff. It sounds romantic, it sounds esoteric, and it is, but it's also not. It's really simple and practical. And you can't just talk about it. The practice is the vehicle of understanding, I notice. And, you know, that's what I find works for me.
There's no you can't cheat the practice. If you don't give the plant water, it's just not going to grow. It's simple and plain.
Yeah.
You know, if you don't put the seeds in the ground, they're not going to grow. It's you have to actually go out there and plant the seeds.
Totally.
You know, the weeds will grow by themselves, but if you can keep pulling them out and that, but if you're not planting the actual seeds of the thing that you want there, do I want sunflowers? Do I want rice? Do I want, potatoes? Whatever specific thing, you got to ask yourself what you want, what fulfills you, and you got to be able to actually plant them. If you don't, it's just going to be weeds forever.
Totally. You know, and once it's planted, you can't force it to bloom, you know? Like,
with will.
yeah, it's like you got this beautiful sunflower blossoming and you're just like trying to pull the petals out. Bloom faster, you know?
Excellent, excellent, excellent. It's I think I'm going to wrap up. If do you have any kind of resources anywhere people can find you? Any?
Yeah.
Have you got any books you've written? Any stuff that you're doing where people can get in touch? And
people can go to my website, which is movementmonk.xyz.
yes.
And there's lots of free resources, articles and videos and that sort of thing that they can jump into. I've got a free physical freedom challenge that people can explore, and just to kind of get a feeling for the work, and just kind of dip your toe in the water. And we've got courses and also online mentoring and that sort of thing, and teacher training coming up this year. And so there's lots of things, but if they head to movementmonk.xyz, they'll be able to kind of just learn a bit more about what I'm doing. And if it resonates, reach out, say hey. Yeah.
Beautiful. And just finally, living life in the flow zone, the flow. What specifically, like if you were just to have one tweet on what is flow, what is living life in the flow zone mean to you, what would you share?
I would say it's about allowance. Is to, like, I these days see life, it's taking you, you know, and it's important to kind of have you can kind of change direction when you're in the river, but allow the river to take you, you know. And that's what I do my best to practice. Flow is for me about allowance.
Like opening to no resistance, right?
Yeah, just doing my best to become aware of where I'm resisting just the natural current of my life, and also knowing that I do have the power to course correct, you know. And so it's once again, it's not like this.
One or the other.
Yeah.
Are they bowed in balls behind you?
Oh, yeah, I love them. Yeah. I have different ones, these ones, the
little ones. I got these massive ones. I got a fair few of them as well.
Stone ones, and these are really nice. I made some out of wood. They're in my living room, and
Do you practice with those, or?
Yeah, I do. So I often just work on them just as I'm settling into meditation, and it's kind of hard to do it all the way up here, but yeah.
And that's the reason I say, because that's the whole thing of allowing. You don't want to push them. You just want to allow the space for them to fall into, right? I think it's a very practical way of practicing what you just mentioned.
Yeah, totally. So, like this, for me, actually was a big meditation for a long time. My mind was so busy, I just focused on the balls. And yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. Cool, brother. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure getting to know you. First time we've caught up properly.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And look forward to doing it again. And I'm sure in the future you'll be doing some cool stuff. And I look forward to doing it again sometime.
Me too. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And until next time, people, thanks for joining us. Keep the flow growing and the growth flowing.